Welcome to the Peace is Possible podcast, where healing meets truth and inner work becomes world work. I'm your host, Eva Dalak, life coach, international gender and conflict expert, and founder of Peace Activation. In this space, we dive deep into what it really means to live and lead with peace, beyond slogans, beyond performance. Each episode offers raw conversations, personal reflections, and practical tools to help you cultivate inner peace and create safer, more conscious space around you. If you believe peace is possible, not just globally, but right here in your body, in your relationships, you're in the right place. Subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast and visit peaceactivation.org to learn more. Hello, Sami. How are you today? Welcome to the Peace is Possible podcast.
Thank
Very
you. Thank you.
honored to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Can you
Yeah.
please introduce yourself to our audience?
So my name is Sami Awad. I'm a Palestinian. I live in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank in Bethlehem. Both of my parents are Palestinian. My father is a refugee from Jerusalem in 1948, and my mother is from Gaza, from the Gaza Strip, where I still have extended family that lives there, actually, until this day. I was born in the US, but grew up almost all of my childhood in Palestine, living under what was then direct occupation. The Israeli army was directly controlling everything in our life. And at a very young age, I was introduced to nonviolent resistance and activism through an uncle of mine, Mubarak Awad, who in 1988 was arrested by the Israeli government, was labeled because of his nonviolence a threat to the national security of Israel, and deported. And out of that experience, I declared at the age of 16 my commitment to studying and understanding the power of nonviolence. And that has been my journey for many, many years. As I've expanded in this journey, I started an organization called Holy Land Trust in 1998, aimed to strengthen communities for the future, because one thing I realized, if we are to achieve any peace, it is the communities that make peace, not the leadership. And the communities need to have the strong will and desire and commitment to achieve peace. But as the years also progressed, I began to also understand how peace is not just about sitting and negotiating a solution, because one of the things that has failed during the peace processes that we've had was that a lot of the negotiations were coming from a place of fear. Both sides were speaking from a place of fear of the other and trying to reach an agreement. So one of the aspects of my work shifted also to begin to understand trauma and how collective trauma shapes identity, how we identify ourselves, and how we identify and relate to the other. And added to this is the work that is connected to also personal and collective transformation, the consciousness work that I think ultimately is the aim of what we need to do to achieve a real global understanding of peace. So I label myself as an activist. I don't say a peace activist or a nonviolent activist. I'm an activist that is making change. That's this very violent and dark reality that we live in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like more than activist, I really have a love to play on words, and I feel activator is stronger to activate spaces and activate people and engage people in a change. It's like there's something from within that need to be activated.
Yeah, an activator can activate if people are ready to be activated. So this is also the question. But I think it's also about activating within me.
I think it's basically, for me, it's activating within me, and from within as without, it will trickle down outside in the present. And I think the summary, the collection of your own experience, background, same for me, my own experience, my background is what can activate in the field, can activate people, can engage with the community. And peace activation is a choice of words that I have, because I feel like it brings also the responsibility for each individual, whether you're willing or not, to be like, I don't say, oh, I'm ready to be activated. I think there's something that happens outside or inside that brings you to a realization or to awareness, to a consciousness that you're like, okay, I'm ready to show up in a way that I've never showed up before. And I'm willing to take that responsibility. And it's not a path that is easy to take. I think it's the road less traveled, as the expression says. Can you tell us more about this? Like, what do you see as activation from within that could shift reality outside? Because I really feel like my own background and experience has been that I was able to activate peace inside of me in relation to the triggers that the situation in Palestine, Israel have on me by really understanding how it affects me inside and how I can show up in a way that is not triggering for me, that is not harmful for me. And so being able to be present with the trauma of the other rather than drowning in my own trauma. But it's been a really very complex journey of realization of trauma, intergenerational trauma, individual trauma, collective trauma, and how we are actually all connected just by this field of trauma, of this field of victim consciousness that we're living right now. And so in that context, how is peace possible at all? How can we even speak about peace? Peace has become such a bad word.
I think you just asked me 5 different questions in a row, so I'll try to.
I trust your capacity to weave it all in.
Well, to go back to the inner work, I think I want to start with that. And I think the inner work starts, in my opinion, there is a misperception of what many activists, peace activators, those who are engaging in this field are doing. Finding inner peace, connecting to inner peace, being in inner peace. I think it's a wonderful term. But I think there are 2 aspects of it that are deeply missing in this work. The first aspect, when I practice mindfulness, for example, and meditation, the practice of mindfulness is about being present to whatever is, without judgment, without analysis, without condemnation, without making myself right or wrong. So when there is anger, I am present to anger. When there is frustration, I'm present to frustration. I think many people in the peace movement, and especially involved in the spiritual peace movement, they try to avoid these emotions, these feelings. They bypass them. They think there is something wrong about them if they feel these emotions that they think are negative, that I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't feel angry. I shouldn't feel frustration. I shouldn't feel fed up with. I shouldn't feel resigned, depressed, because that somehow takes me off my track of finding enlightenment and inner peace work. This, I think, is a very, very big mistake. And I think it's a Western approach that has taken people to bypass emotions, to bypass reality and create a false sense of presence in situations. And the best way then to avoid anger, to avoid frustration, to avoid depression is to avoid what's happening in the outside world. And so you have people that are so concerned about their inner peace work that they begin to ignore and neglect the situations of the world, and they begin to distance themselves from it. And they say, oh, we are on the path of whatever journey, and we cannot be involved. And I think this is a disaster for people who use the word peace. This is one of the disasters of why I think the word peace has lost credibility in many spaces. The second component of this, as I mentioned, is that for me to really be able to find my inner peace, the test of my inner peace work is the challenges of the outside world. Am I really able to confront situations from a different reality, from a different reaction than what is expected of me in a normal setting, where if somebody slaps me, I slap them back? So unless somebody experiences violence, somebody experiences hatred, somebody experiences persecution, this becomes the test if you are really a peace activator. If you are just avoiding conflict and focusing on your own, isolating yourself, bypassing emotions, and not engaging with the world, for me, this is the farthest thing from peace work. And so people who are really engaging on a journey to find inner peace, they need to have the mirrors of reality of the outside world. There is racism, there is issues of gender, discrimination, there is violence, there is genocide happening. How do I relate to this? How do I become aware of my emotion, understand what is happening within me? If it's anger, then how do I take this anger into a positive way? If there is frustration, how do I deal with it in a way that can build, not destroy? But to avoid all of this, I call it peace deactivation, I guess the term that I would use.
Yes, in full agreement with every word. I think that what I notice is the fear of touching these emotions. Is that the fear that if I let go and face this emotion of anger, frustration, then I will drown in it. And I think that's where the mindfulness, the peace activation from inside is actually this work that we do on building inner resilience, which means that there's such an awareness of our own traumas and how they are playing out in our interaction with the other.
If there is fear, then that means this is the work I need.
Yeah.
I will not find it unless I experience the fear rising. If there's this sense that I'm afraid I will drown in the pain, then this is the work I need to do as an activist. And so to avoid all of this, it completely misses the point. Now, of course, we have the other side of this, who are the hardcore activists that are engaging from a place of reaction, from a place of complete anger, from a place of frustration, from a place of burnout, from a place of hatred towards the other. And there as well, we're seeing also a bypass of emotion, bypass of inner work that is very, very important. This is why people like us always talk about sacred activism. You have to bring the sacredness, the spiritual work with direct action. You cannot do one without the other. If you want to be a monk or a nun and do this work, do it. And if you want to be an activist, it's very important for you to also engage in your own healing work as well, an inner process, become aware of your emotions. And we're seeing so many activists burn out. They can't continue anymore. They're frustrated, they're depressed. Some very, very desperate in their situation because they are not able to nourish themselves, to center themselves, to realign themselves because they're missing that part of the work.
I think it's too extreme that need to find a point of balance, which is the journey of life. But also I feel like with what's happening right now, it's been 2 years of total feeling of powerlessness and nearly numbness for certain people. Either it's overreaction because I just need to do something, or I'm so frozen, but it's all reaction of traumas. And for me, it's like we're living in such a collective field of trauma, and we're so bonded our trauma that we're not actually able to even respond. And the reaction I call it riding the wave of Gaza, meaning having all these pockets of violence in different places around the world, not realizing that the issue were there already, and they're coming to the surface, and we're observing a whole total awakening of the field itself, of what's happening. What's happening in Gaza is taking on such a level that there's no other way than facing the truth of what we've always known before, of manipulation, of propaganda, of programming. Now it's all up in the open. Nobody can say, I don't know, or I didn't know, or I didn't see. It's over there. It's stream live. And so in this context, how can we even talk about peace is possible? What would it look like?
First, let me confirm what you said, because what happened in Gaza and continues to happen every single day has really exposed the system and the structures of violence that had manipulated many of us for decades. This Western imperialism with the nice suits and the nice ties and the nice gatherings that they were organizing, talking about peace and talking about reconciliation. Even with the best of intention, those people that came here, at the end of the day, the system was exposed. This is a system of racism. This is a system of ethnic cleansing. Genocide is a tool that ultimately aims to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from this land. It's colonialism at its core. And then this was what was exposed, even though for many, many years, I myself was engaged in peace work, talking about peace, talking about creating spaces where Palestinians and Israelis come together. I really feel at this time, and I think it's very important for us, even as peace activists, peace activators, to acknowledge there are certain structures and systems that have to be dismantled. There are certain structures that you just simply cannot make peace with them. They are so ideologically trenched in what they believe. They are so animate on what they think is right and how other people should be treated that making peace with them is not an option. I don't know anywhere in this world where we have to and are called to make peace with every single entity and every single ideology. Most of the peace that we have in the world today anyway is not peace. It's just agreements to not engage in violence with each other. And that can at any point break down and violence will happen with Russia, Ukraine, India, Pakistan immediately. Like the smallest thing can trigger this. So I think ultimately this is where I believe resistance comes in and is very, very important. to dismantle systems and structures and ideologies that are embedded in racism, privilege, supremacy is part of peace work. Because again, we fall back to the trap. Peace work is about getting them together, sit together, have them agree, have them reconcile. That peace work is a process. We want to reach peace. And to reach peace, it's a process. And part of the process is the agreement that apartheid cannot exist. Apartheid and anything that supports apartheid has to be dismantled. An ideology that says one group of people is better than another group of people, you cannot make peace with that. It has to be dismantled. And I say this for the sake of the oppressed and the oppressor. The struggle is to liberate the oppressed and the oppressor from the oppression. But that is done through activism, through action. And so I support measures to put international pressure, even on our friends that are, again, using the word peace. They need to understand that, for example, Israelis that are part of the Israeli system that talk peace, they're still part of a system. They still benefit from it. Many of them are ideologically following Zionism, lefty, righty, progressive Zionism. It's still an ideology of preferential treatment of one group over the other. For security reasons, out of fear, it still has that component. There's the us and the them. And then, so for me, peace ultimately is possible, but peace is possible, in my opinion, when there is the clear recognition of the full and legitimate equal rights of all the people that live in this land to live in dignity, to live in security, to live in opportunity, to live in peace. Anything beyond that is not peace. We fall into the trap of the Pax Romana. Let's find an agreement. And I think for us, people like us, we're not interested in that. I'm not interested in having a ceasefire until the next violent eruption happens, which will happen if we don't cut at the roots of the situation that we are living in. And that means that those in privilege have to understand that they will lose some of their privilege. Many people who are engaged in peace talks from the privilege never consider what is the sacrifice they have to do. It's always about what is the sacrifice that the oppressed has to do in order to be able to get his or her head out of the dirt for a little bit. But to understand, those who are in privilege will have to lose certain aspects of their privilege so that others can have their privileges raised like us. But if they want to negotiate while maintaining their status and their privilege and their supremacy, I don't know what peace can happen. This is why resistance becomes important.
Yes. What comes forward is also, because you spoke about roots or causes of conflict, there's also something around responsibility within the Palestinian community of coming together, which has really been one major root, I think, of what we're living right now. I remember in one of our conversations, you also spoke about the prisoner syndrome. Can you speak a bit about that?
Definitely. You know, the oppressor is the oppressor and they have their agenda. And we could look back and we could blame them and we could put them at fault and we could accuse them. They have their agenda. They're doing what they think is best for them, for their people, for their religion, ideology, whatever they believe in, they are doing what they're doing. And so the liberation for any people comes from the people themselves. Nobody from the outside is going to come liberate the Palestinians. And definitely it's not going to be the Israeli system the way it stands now or has stood for the last 50 years or more that's going to give liberation to the Palestinians. It's not going to be a hand-me-down. It is going to take the Palestinians to come together, exactly what you said, in unity, in strength, in vision, in leadership, in building real relationships of trust and respect between this community that has been divided and cut for so many years from each other. And we could blame the occupation for a lot of this, but also taking responsibility. If I blame somebody for dividing my community, then means I acknowledge there is division. That means what is the responsibility I'm going to take? It's like a doctor diagnosing something and say, oh, this is the problem, and then walking away. If there's a diagnosis, then there is a healing that needs to happen. And then this is connected to what we talk a lot about in psychology and social psychology, which is the prison psychology, the prison mindset, the prisoners. The Palestinians are prisoners. And while you are in prison, the prisoners are never united together. They're never good with each other. They're all trying different ways to find how to control the prisoners group, who is going to be in charge, who's going to be the bully, who's going to be the one that's going to negotiate with the prison guards, who's going to have the relationship, who benefits from the relationship with the prison guards, the internal fighting, the internal division that is caused by the prison guards to the prisoners by creating preferential. In the prison psychology, it's usually race. So it's usually the white prisoners that have in the US more privilege than the African American, maybe than the Latino prisoners. So that creates the division. So that mindset exists actually within the Palestinian community. It's very difficult from a place of pain and trauma and continuous violence to say, I want to step out of this and bring unity to a people that is living in desperation, in agony, in fear of what comes tomorrow. But I fully agree. The responsibility for liberation is for the Palestinians. And we need leadership that is really able to bring the people together, bring vision together, and leadership that is also ready to step into a real leadership role, to stand on the front lines, even of resistance and resiliency, and not just, diplomatic leaders that are flying from country to country to negotiate another try for peace that has failed.
And I think this leadership component is missing not only on the Palestinian, it's missing on both sides, whether it's in Israel or in Palestine, even worldwide. I feel like we're at a breakdown of a system of an international organizations, all this international system that was brought forward after World War II, and this new order that now we're witnessing it's falling apart, and the emergence of a new system, but we're not yet sure what is emerging. And because of all this division from all sides, it's like having reality broadcasted live so that people cannot say, oh, we didn't know. And then having really the opportunity and the risk and the danger, because that's what conflict brings about. It's danger and opportunity at the same time of everybody, rather than choosing one side over the other, but choosing of humanity and where we're moving forward together. And I think that's what has been missing up until now, because it seems like as we're privileging certain type of humanity versus another type of humans, and it's just heartbreaking.
At one point, I want to agree and disagree with what you said.
Please disagree and challenge me on anything I say.
When we look from the outside to Israeli society, we say, yeah, they need leadership. It's falling apart. It's becoming fascist and so on. But the reality is that a great majority of Israelis still support the system. They still support this government. They still support the war and the genocide that's happening in Gaza. They might not like the tactic and the strategy, especially when it comes to the hostages that are in Gaza. That's what they're concerned about. But most Israelis, sadly, agree with what Netanyahu is doing. It is a very, very few that are really opposing this and saying that we are heading to a disaster. And I think this is one of the challenges that we see historically when it comes to fascist systems for hundreds and thousands of years. When there is a system of fascism, it is able to convince through fear and through coercion the people to obey, to follow, to give allegiance to surrender their freedom for that system that is not just going to protect them, that is going to make them rise above everybody else. This is how fascist systems work. And this is where I agree with you. We look at what's happening and we say this is a disaster because there isn't a fascist system that has ever lasted. And usually these fascist systems end up imploding, being destroyed from within, if not from the outside. And so to that point, I say, as the Palestinians are looking for visionary leadership and unity for the future, our encouragement to our Israeli friends that believe in justice and peace and equal rights is they need to do the work within their community. They need to address the corruption, the fascism, the power dynamics that they live in. If they want real peace with the Palestinians, not security arrangement like how the past leaders did, especially the Israeli left, which has been the biggest failure. I think the reason why we are where we are is because the Israeli left failed their population and failed us. And so if Israelis that are really interested in justice, I say justice before peace, justice and peace and equal rights, they need to do the work with their community and start addressing the issues that they are facing for sure. But I think it's very, very challenging these days to even have voices of our Israeli friends being spoken in these spaces, but they need to do the work.
I think that I agree. There's been this conference that gathered a lot of the peace activists in Israel, peace organization, around what's happening. I feel actually that the issue is that we're facing each other rather than opening it up. And once we open it up wider to more than the Palestinian-Israeli as a system. Because if we look at the example of France and Germany after World War II, and what created, I often use this in my training, like, is the European Union a successful example of conflict transformation? Is this something that we can even imagine in the Middle East?
Well, we could all imagine it. How feasible is it? How likely is it with the circumstances that we are living now? Sadly, with the structures that exist today, I really don't see it happening. Just if we believe like in a European Union style in the Middle East, that means even the countries that are part of this union, whoever they are, they need to adhere to certain aspects of democracy and freedom and dignity and civil rights of people in their own countries first. Women's rights, gender issues that have to be addressed in these countries, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, real practice of democracy and elections and plurality and ability to choose who you want as a leader. This idea that if we want to have that utopian or better version of the Middle East, it starts with these countries. Are they really ready to be in a process where plurality and democracy and equal civil rights are respected? This is the question that happens in the Middle East. Now, in the Arab world, when it comes to Israel, is Israel ready to really become an equal partner to the rest of the Middle East as well? Or is it turning from a colonial system to an imperial system in this region? They want to dominate, they want to control everything else. What's happening in Syria now, what's happening and destroying Iran and Iraq, in Jordan and all in Lebanon. I think it's more hegemony than creating a real peaceful Middle East. And this idea to have one state control all of this and call this a new Middle East, a new peace, that is a disaster. So I think if this is the dream, then it starts again and again by acknowledging and recognizing the equal rights of all the people that live in the Middle East to live in dignity and security and respect. And bypassing the Palestinians to achieve this Abrahamic agreement and Middle East is doomed for failure. It's an economic peace process that is aimed to make the rich richer and the poor poorer and create another slave system in this region that we definitely do not need.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for speaking to that. I wanted to bring this also into the conversation because I think that what we're living right now is a direct result of the unhealed trauma of World War II. And when I open up the Palestinian-Israeli, I feel like the missing link in this duo is the trio, which is the German. Palestinian paying the price for what happened in Europe and not being taken, and this whole collective trauma not being taken into consideration and making it about a land that belonged to two people and trying to find and negotiate an agreement around two, when the missing link is the unhealed trauma, the collective trauma, the shame, the blame, which actually makes that a lot of people are silenced in Germany or put in prison. There's a whole dynamic here with the German that hasn't been addressed and that we've been addressing actually in private, in different sessions, in Zooms, but this has come up a lot, how much the unhealed collective trauma in Germany is affecting what's happening right now and the response of the international community to what's happening right now. And how certain human life are showcased more than others.
Yeah. As I said before, when I started this journey, I began to really understand and acknowledge how it is very, very important to heal the collective trauma. What the Jewish community in Europe, again, not anywhere else but in Europe, suffered on the hands of racists in Europe. The violence that was experienced there, the discrimination is very, very deep and has created deep wounds. And the Holocaust was the high point of that suffering, that there is absolutely no denial of that. At the same time, and I agree fully with what you said, there has never been a healing process. There has only been a processes of putting guilt and shame and manipulation of the trauma for the benefit of Israel. Germans cannot criticize Israel. None of the European countries can criticize Israel. If you criticize Israel in anything that it does, it is anti-Semitic, it is neo-Nazi, it is returning us to the ghettos. This language that is used continuously, anything that is critical of Israel is anti-Semitic. Anything that is challenging, even policies, is anti-Semitic. This is part of the guilt and shame. This is part of what the Europeans need to wake up to and from, and to say, yes, the mistakes were done and we have paid the price for what we have done. and now we need to move on. And if Israel likes it or not, that's their choice. I really believe that the lack of healing of this trauma and the lack of engagement and turning the trauma into a tool of manipulation by the establishment in a way has caused the trauma to become cancerous. And with cancer, it's not just about healing, it's about really pulling it out. I've been attacked for even talking about Jewish trauma as a Palestinian, that we need to also be involved in the healing of the trauma of our enemy, even what they're doing to us. But there reaches a point where that trauma has become this genocidal machine towards us as Palestinians, where we have to acknowledge, yes, there is healing that needs to happen, but now they've crossed boundaries. They've crossed points that even us as Palestinians, we need to say, no, now it is about our resiliency and our resistance, because now we are facing ethnic cleansing. This is not about achieving a peace solution now. Now it's about survival. And again, I fully believe that through nonviolence, that can ultimately and hopefully open up a little bit of the consciousness of the other side to acknowledge that, look what we are doing to them. Look how we are treating them. And most Israelis are completely blind because of the manipulation of the trauma, because every act by Palestinians is seen as an existential threat. And there are Israelis that have suffered and violence. But this is the reality that we live as Palestinians on a daily basis. And for generations, we have been living this pain and suffering. And so trauma healing is important. At the same time, addressing the structures of manipulation and injustice is important. And at some point, I really hope Jews around the world, not just Israelis, wake up and say enough of this country using and abusing our history of pain to achieve political goals that aim to destroy other people, as what is happening to the Palestinians.
I think there's many that have awakened, not just Jewish people, but around the world. As I said before, there's always danger and opportunity in any crisis that happen. And the opportunity, if we may say, with what's happening right now, is this huge awakening from around the globe. And how can we harness this awakening of understanding how we are all have been programmed, manipulated, and understanding how we're being used for an agenda that is not ours, thinking that we are playing the role of certain identities, and how our identities, you being Palestinian and Israeli and Muslim and Christian, all of these identities blinding us completely to our humanity, and then putting one human above another. And I think what's happening, or at least the reading that I have, and I'm not living in Palestine or Israel, I'm living in Costa Rica in a beautiful environment and able to connect to spirit and to the earth, is what I receive when I'm connecting from here. And even when I come back from the region, it's not that I'm completely detached from the region. I'm not living like a monk. With this back and forth, every time I'm there and I'm in the field of suffering, of victimhood, and I come back here and I'm in completely different field, I'm like, wow, how can we bridge this two field, which we're now at the crossroad of really claiming humanity. And I love the sentence, humanity will prevail. At the same time, we are humanity. It's not going to prevail alone. It's not going to happen somewhere out there and somehow it's going to end. It's not going to end unless every single individual is going to awaken and say, enough of this manipulation, enough of this system of oppression and dehumanization. And so this is the great awakening that we have been waiting for, hearing about, but we're not realizing we are the one. Yep. We are the one. There's no Christ coming. We are the Christ. So I really would like you to speak to that, because I also know that you're just finished a book around the theme. So maybe that would be a good closure for our discussion.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And I think the word I want to focus on is when you said we had enough. And this is what's missing. People coming out and saying we have had enough. And this is nonviolence. This is the power of nonviolence, when I am empowered to stand in front of the system of oppression and say, I have had enough of you. This is the awakening that you are talking about. This is the awakening that I agree with fully. The book that I'm writing really addresses this notion. It's a book on Christ consciousness. How do we awaken Christ consciousness within us? And it is studying in details the teachings and life of Jesus, who manifested Christ consciousness within him while he was on this earth. One of the key aspects of what Jesus lived and did, as did, I would say, all spiritual leaders and prophets and enlightened people from history around the world in all indigenous cultures and societies, one of the key components of consciousness awakening is addressing duality and bringing unity. Sadly, again, what many of our peace activist community and spiritual leaders today are talking about addressing duality, but they are living duality because they have created their bubbles, and then there is the rest of the world. What Christ consciousness is about is reaching to the skies at the same time as having my feet grounded in this reality. Jesus said, you are in this world, but not of this world. You are still in this world. That means you are still responsible for doing the things to liberate people from the chains that are not allowing them to live humanity. Most people are enslaved. Most people are shackled in chains. Those who claim to have achieved liberation and freedom are responsible for liberating others as well. And this is what, for me, the shift in consciousness, how it will happen, this is how it will happen. When people like us who believe there is a higher consciousness that we as humanity can reach, begin to understand that our job is to take people with us to this and not to bypass or avoid the pain of the world. So this is my encouragement to people who are listening here, who are in their journey of inner peace work and mindfulness practice. This work is half the work. The other half is to take all of this into action. And Jesus said, you will suffer. And sadly, many in this new age movement try to avoid terms like suffering and persecution and rejection because these are not nice terms. I believe that in this work that we want to do, this is part of the price that we have to pay. If you want to shift the global consciousness, you have to address the structures that maintain the old consciousness. You have to resist them, you have to transform them, you have to create alternatives to them, but it's not about ignoring them and denying them.
I think the sentence that came to me is also, we are spiritual being having a human experience. We chose this human experience. And as souls, I think we all came to experience these 5 wounds of the human souls: abandonment, rejection, betrayal, humiliation, and injustice. And I think somehow the Palestinian, we got the lottery of all of all these woundings to go through. And I think right now humanity is at crucial understanding and awakening of we've been going through this wounding, a wounded humanity, and it's time for us to raise above this woundology at being attached, whether you're attached to the wounds or you're denying the wound, whether you're playing the victim or denying there's a victim. There's something around raising above and creating this field that Rumi speaks about, beyond right doing and wrongdoing. There's this field where we meet when we are awakened and enlightened, while having feet on the ground in the field.
And again, I will keep saying that there is a vision and there's a way to get to that vision. And the way to get to that vision is doing the hard work, the hard labor. And this assumption that this new reality will emerge by itself is a disastrous thought, and it makes people buy into a false reality and false narrative. The force, I'm going to use the word, the force of evil is very, very strong. The force of the prevailing consciousness is very embedded in us. It's in our DNA structure. And to just assume that there's this rebirthing of a new consciousness that's going to emerge, it is a lie. I'll say it directly, it's a lie. And people that have been speaking this for hundreds of years have not proven it. People have assumed it's going to happen in all the sort of alternative new age movements. It's not new age. It has been around, has not happened. It can only happen when we stand up and address at the same time. We say we reach and we address and we challenge the structures and we create the alternative. By challenging just the systems that are without having a vision for a shift in consciousness, we are just recreating these systems again and again. By focusing too much on this consciousness and not addressing this, we're creating an illusion for people to buy into that will never be achieved.
Thank you, Sami. Thank you so much for this clarity, wisdom.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you.
Is there any final notes you want to invite anybody to see something or do something or take action?
There are many, many activities that people can engage in. If people want to come to Palestine, there's the unarmed civilian protection in Palestine. These internationals that come in solidarity and defense of Palestinians that are being attacked on a daily basis, continuous by settlers. But I would say you don't even have to come here to do action. As you said, the global situation is a disaster. It's a disaster in the US, it's a disaster in Europe. So if people really feel called to action, engage, meet with the activists in your community. If you're engaging in inner peace work, connect with those who are actively engaged in addressing the genocide, the fascism of what's happening in the US. Meet with those people and engage with them, get to know them, and join activism. For me, it is very, very important that we take action. And the more people that take action, the sooner these systems will begin to collapse. And the more people that are engaging in inner peace work connect and bring love to other activists, the more they will also experience healing from you. They begin to see that people actually care about them and care about the messages. And so their anger and their frustration and their hatred might shift in having these connections happen between us. So engage, no matter where you are, engage.
Thank you. Thank you, Sami.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, for feeling, and for holding space with us. If this episode moved you, please support the Peace is Possible podcast by subscribing, sharing it with friends, or posting it online. Every ripple counts. We'll be back next month with another conversation that dives deep into what it truly means to activate peace within and around us. To support the vision behind Peace Activation, visit peaceactivation.org and follow along on social media. You'll find both Peace Activation and me, Eva Dalak, across all platforms. Until next time, may you meet yourself and others with peace.